Rodriguez, and I am the Assistant Dean for Student Support and Success at Tulane School of Professional Advancement, which we like to call SoPA for short, because that's a lot of words. And I'll let Miguel introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Miguel Devison. I'm the Senior Financial Aid Counselor here with Tulane. I deal with graduate students at the downtown campus for the most part.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit of our agenda for the day. So we started with introductions. We'll start out first letting you know how to find out who your financial aid counselor is and what they can help you with. Then we'll go into the all-important FAFSA, which is the Federal Financial Aid Form. We'll talk about a few different things that you need to add to that, which is a graduate addendum. Then we're going to talk about how you understand where you are in the process of financial aid and how our notifications sent. Then we'll continue to loan limits and the ways that you can maintain your financial aid grants and status through the satisfactory academic process, progress reports. Then we'll make sure you know about how any sort of enrollment changes that you have could affect financial aid. And then lastly, end with the all-important SoPA graduate checklist that we made to help make sure you hit all of those points so you can get your aid in a timely manner. All right, so who is your financial aid counselor? So is it right, Miguel, every single student is assigned their very own financial aid counselor?
Yes, every student has their own counselor. We have a good alpha distribution for equability with our counselor load. For all of our students to have a direct counselor that they could correlate and correspond with for any general questions or any follow-ups for any items they may have submitted. You can find your counselors here on the alphabetical list under the Meet Us tab on our website. So there's a specific link for the graduate and SoPA counselor breakdown. So you can find that there.
Great. And the best way to communicate with counselors, would that be via email because of the pandemic?
Yes. We also have our phone lines open. So we have a great support staff that are answering our phones. So if you call in, you will get to someone. So have no fear that you can't talk to a live person. But the great form of communication right now is email, and our counselors are available for Zoom appointments as well.
All right, thanks. So the FAFSA, this is like the basis of financial aid. Talk to us about that and let us know about some important deadlines.
So what's your FAFSA? So this form becomes available every October 1st. It uses the prior year with the tax information. So you're using 2 years ago's tax information on the current FAFSA. So right now, if you log into studentaid.gov to complete your FAFSA, you're going to have 2 forms available. You'll have the 2021 and the 21-22 FAFSA that's going to be available right now. For both of those, you'll put the Tulane school code, which is listed here, 00-2029. For your FAFSA, for those of you who may be starting in spring, or those continuing students who are going to be switching to having aid for spring, you want to complete your 2021 FAFSA to make certain that you have aid available. So right now for spring starts, you kind of want to get those in now. That way we could get moving forward to your aid process and have everything set up for you all for the start of the spring term.
And I've been told that the real deadline, like really you got to have everything in before that, is November 15th if you want to start in spring. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we want to move kind of quickly to get it in and at least have that FAFSA in so we can move forward on getting everything else processed for you all. Now that deadline you see there is that April 15th. That is a federal priority deadline. This one is not a make it or break it deadline. However, for that deadline, you will want to have it in as some other aid, institutional aid and everything follows the priority deadline for the FAFSA. So you want to try to make certain that the FAFSA is completed by that time.
Great. So that's mainly for like fall starts, things like that.
Correct.
Great. Awesome. All right. So we've established that you want to get your FAFSA in, the sooner the better. But there's in addition to the FAFSA, there's another important thing that they need to fill out. Tell us about this graduate addendum.
So the graduate addendum informs your counselor of what school you're actually enrolled in, what program of choice, and the hours of enrollment. And also, you can also report any expected aid for any scholarship aid that you're receiving institutional-wise or from outside sources. That way we can actually have that listed as a resource aid credit when we're packaging your aid. The addendum is very helpful because not all programs follow the same course numbers for your enrolled hours. So students can be part-time here, full-time here, and your full-time and part-time hours can vary. So we actually need that good information so we can package and create your cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is the driving force of what allows us the limitations for your total aid package for the academic enrollment period and the academic year.
Great, thanks. And I see the April 15th deadline for the fall semester, but for the spring semester, if there are folks who are looking at spring, November 15th.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so here we go. Apply by the 15th if you want to do the fall semester. No, April 15th. For spring semester, it would be November 15th, but really before then is preferable, right?
Yes, as soon as possible. Don't delay. You want to move on it and be expeditious with getting on board with getting all your aid items in line. That way we can avoid any delays in processing and have everything suitable for you and packaged for you for when courses begin. So expeditious, just have that word in mind, be expeditious.
Yes, absolutely.
Processing.
Absolutely. And just by the way, I know that Anne put in the chat, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll make sure to leave some time at the end for if you need to discuss some stuff, but feel free to put any questions in the chat, so we'll make sure to get to them. All right, so you've filled out all this stuff. How do we know where things are in the process? How do we accept stuff? Because it's not just like it's going to magically appear in the system. Talk us through that.
So award notifications will come via your Tulane email address. That's our primary email that we will be contacting you through. So make certain you're checking your Tulane email address. Also, in the Gibson portal under the financial aid section, you're going to have award overviews and your to-do list information is going to pop up there. You must accept your terms and conditions prior to accepting your aid for your aid to actually credit. Any items on your to-do list that are listed as requirements may prevent your aid from dispersing. So it's important to make certain that you complete all items on your to-do list. For first-time borrowers, you have to make certain you have to complete your additional loan requirements on studentaid.gov. Make note that some of you may have a Graduate Plus loan and an unsubsidized federal direct loan. These have two separate master promissory notes, so make certain that you're completing both. The entrance counseling will satisfy for both of those loans. The aid will be dispersed once all items are completed, and your accepted aid will split evenly for your enrollment terms.
That's important. So when I was in graduate school at Tulane, I had those two kind of master promissory notes. The master promissory notes, for anybody who hasn't done them before, it's just basically the government, you know, it's like your agreement with the government saying, hey, these are the terms, and, you know, so read through, make sure you understand it. And then the entrance loan counseling is actually really helpful because it just, the government wants to make sure you understand the investment that you're making and the consequences of that investment financially. So they're actually both very helpful. Make sure you do those. And then the Gibson portal. So for those of you who have not applied yet, so when you apply, if you're accepted, you'll receive a notification of acceptance, and then you'll receive a notification of what your Tulane email address is going to be. So I cannot stress largely enough that you need to check that Tulane email address like every day, because that's where all of the communications from the university are going to go through. And it's that Tulane email address with your password that gets you into this, we call it the Gibson portal. So it's basically like, I don't know, I'm aging myself, but we used to have those trapper keepers in high school. This is like the trapper keeper of all of the different forms and important things that you have during your time at school. So make sure to check that Gibson portal. And if you have any questions about how to get to the Gibson portal, we have instructions online, or you can give us a call as well. We'll make sure you know how to do that.
I also wanted to point out, Vanessa, we have instructions under the My Aid link at the top of our website on how to accept your aid as well. So we have a nice PDF that gives a good flow of each step you need to take to make sure and make certain that your aid has been accepted and you have completed everything that's needed.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So continuing forward, let's see. Where are these notifications sent? How is the money applied? And what's the timing of that? Can you kind of clarify that for us?
So if your aid and all requirements are taken care of and accepted ahead of time, your aid will disperse to your account 3 days prior to the start of classes. So you have a credit that will populate. If we're starting on the Monday, it'll be that Friday. So you'll have a negative credit that's going to populate on your bill. If your aid is more than, if you've accepted up to the cost of attendance, you'll have that negative credit that's going to display. That's your refund amount. Those of you who may accept only tuition and fees will not have that. You're going to have a zero balance at that point. But the negative credit will be your refund. You have a procedure where you have to actually request your refund through Gibson. Once you've requested your refund, you have to allow 1 to 3 business days for the transfer to the banking institutions. And at that point, you'll have it to your account. It's very important that you follow that link there for the accounts receivables website to follow the steps for the refund disbursement, because you actually have to set up your direct deposit account. So you're just going to do it just like you do with your job, where you set up direct deposit enrollment, where you have all of that taken care of to where your funds can be sent to you electronically. Also, Tulane email address is going to be where items are going to come. You're going to have your first bill that's going to come prior to the start of the term as well. So make certain that you're looking for all your notifications for the various entities in your Tulane email.
Absolutely. Tulane email is super, super, super important. And I want to say, and we're going to go into this a little bit more later, but so the amount of money that you are given is based on the information that you submitted to the office. And so please be careful with refunds. If you say that you're going to take 12 credit class hours, say, or 9 credit class hours, and then you end up taking 6, that you will have to give that back. So
Yes.
We'll talk about that a little bit later, but just know that with the refund. So, you know, if you've already spent it, then that could be problematic. So just keep an eye out for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right. So for the federal graduate loan limits, talk to us about that. What is it? What does that mean?
So all of you who you've completed your undergraduate degree. For your undergraduate degree, you had a max of $57,500 that you are eligible to receive with your combined subsidized and unsubsidized loan. If you borrowed up to the max of your undergraduate degree career, and as the graduate population, you get a little bump up to $138,500. However, if you borrowed the max of that $57,500, that comes out of that. So that gives you a little bit left for your degree. So this is going to be your the max for your unsubsidized loans. So as a graduate student, you're only eligible to receive unsubsidized and the Graduate Plus loan. So once you have reached that cap, you're only eligible to receive the Federal Direct Graduate Plus loan. You can follow your loan history on studentaid.gov to make certain that you're under the aggregate limit, but this is the lifetime aggregate limit currently set. They haven't changed this in some time for graduate borrowers. But have no fear, if you are at the max, you can have the Graduate Plus loan because that one has no aggregate limit on that.
All right, so just to be clear, make sure I'm understanding this. This is the limit that the US government has said federally, okay, over your course of life as a student, if you're borrowing federally, you can only borrow up to this amount for your undergraduate and graduate degrees if they're subsidized and unsubsidized loans, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. But there's another option with a graduate plus if you've already reached that limit.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks. All right. So moving forward. So it's important. This is something that not everybody knows. So once you are given the aid, you have to have a kind of minimum grades and minimum progress so that you can keep getting aid in the future. So talk to us about what those requirements are.
So like with anything in life, we have some contract limitations of what you all have to actually file a suit while you're here. Your aid must be used towards actual degree completion. So we have some guidelines in place under the satisfactory academic progress where we have a good standing, a warning, and a suspension. We track the methods of your grades for your satisfactory academic progress. You have to keep at least a B average with making sure you're in good standing. When you do fall off kilter, everyone has that time where you're going to have a rough semester or life happens. We do have a warning semester. So you're going to have a warning that's going to populate if you're not meeting that threshold for that term prior to you actually having your aid suspended. So you have to make sure you're making sure you're enrolled in all your courses, you're completing most of what you actually enroll in, because it's going to affect you adversely in the end. You want to watch out for drop courses or withdrawal semesters, and just try to make certain that you're on progress and on target each term, because it does affect your aid, and we don't want to be the mean people that take your money back and have outstanding balance out there.
So, and that's important. And the purpose of this, as I understand it, is the federal government offers these loans for the purposes of people making progress and achieving their educational goals. So the purpose of this is making sure that these loans are serving that idea, and not somebody's not just continually taking out loans if they're not making progress towards what they want to achieve. So it's kind of a check and balance. It may seem a little bit harsh, but it's really is a way to make sure that people are actually moving forward in their academic goals.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Continuing forward. So you were talking about the grade point averages that are necessary based on attempted hours. I know this sounds a little bit confusing, but you helped me understand this a lot more. So tell us.
So we have three components we review when we're considering SAP. So qualitative is the grade point average, where you have a minimum grade point average you have to actually meet to continue your aid for that term after that term. So we check your progress after each semester, actually. So your first semester, you might have that. If you're not doing that well, you might have a warning based on a qualitative grade point average if you're below this threshold that you see here. And in the spring, you have your makeup time. If you don't meet over the minimum, you will most likely be on suspension after that. So the qualitative one, this is with the grade point average based on the attempted hours.
Okay, so wait, real quick before we go, I want to make sure that folks understand what attempted hours means, because I think it's broader than what most people think.
So with attempted hours, okay, say you're in 12 hours for the fall. However, something happens, you drop down to 9. Your original attempt is 12, even though you completed 9. So you earned 9 hours out of the 12. However, we count that attempt. So that's going to count against you. So moving forward, if in the spring you attempt 12 again and you drop down to 6, now you're meeting 50% of what you attempted for that term. However, you have 24 hours you've attempted at that point, and we have to look at some things at that point to make certain that you're still in your SAP guidelines.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so the other two elements that you guys consider, quantitative completion rate and quantitative maximum time. So put this in language that I can understand, Miguel.
So the completion rate, we review everything that you've completed. You must complete at least 2/3 of the attempted credit overall. So that's for within the academic enroll period. So and also in the semester. So as I stated with the example I gave with the 12 and 12. So you have to meet at least 2/3 of that threshold to actually continue having your aid to be maintained. For the quantitative maximum time frame, this is the overall scope of your program. Each program has a max hours that's advertised for degree completion. We give you up to 150%. So we give you a little wiggle room because we know there are going to be some errors there for the maximum time frame. So we give you a little wiggle room to make some errors there. However, you must be within 150% of the program length that's described out there.
So I've seen this more of an issue, the quantitative maximum time tends to be more of an issue for undergraduates than graduates, in my experience, and it primarily becomes an issue when people change majors, because there might be a whole lot of credits that they have that might not go to the next major. But with graduate programs, because they are more focused, it's usually less of an issue. Most of our graduate programs are between 30 and 33 credit hours to complete. So if it's a 30 credit hour program, then you can take up to 45 credit hours based on this before. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Moving forward. So you talked about the warning period. What if during that warning period, you were not able to meet the standards that were described before? Tell us about this appeal.
So we are not the cruel, cold-hearted people you think. We have some opportunities for you all to make appeals. As we understand, life happens. People have health reasons. People have parents they're taking care of where some things happen. So in that period where you're unable to meet following a warning semester, you can actually complete a financial aid appeal. Your appeal will need to be submitted with the application, your letter, and any additional documentations that you have. Whenever I tell a student that has to do an appeal, I always state, go into it like you're pleading in court, like you're stating your case and you want to come with your supporting documentation. The appeal, just because it's submitted, does not mean it will be approved. You may have a loss of aid if it's denied. However, you can reappeal if you do stay enrolled that term and you're successful. So we also have other options if during that time where you might have to go to seek a private loan during that time if you're unable to pay out of pocket. But we have some reconsiderations if you're successful during that time where you're on financial aid suspension.
Yeah, no, we all want everybody to succeed. And I think I've, in my experience with students in this appeal, just being concrete about what had affected their academic performance in those semesters where they had difficulty, and also stating what they were doing to make sure they were going to be successful the next semester, what things they had in place. I found that's really helpful so that the people reviewing it can say, okay, well, this was a really difficult time. This is the help that they are getting. These are the support systems that they have in place so that they can feel more confident that you are making a wise investment at this time in your life.
Yes, and have no fear if anything is going on. We've seen it all in the appeal process. So if anything is going on, have no fear. Just make certain that your support system's there for moving forward for success.
All right, and I see a question from Mia. If they can have access to the recording, yeah, you know what? If you, I'll have Anne send you also have Anne Collinson, anybody who's interested, a recording of this, and yeah, so you can refer to it afterwards. Also, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's something here that's still unclear, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to help. All right, so moving forward. So I hinted at this before with regarding like refunds and disbursements and whatnot, which I think we should note that if somebody's in a strictly online program, they're probably not going to get refunds because they're limited in what they cover, like housing and things like that. But we have on-ground programs too. But either way, enrollment changes definitely have an effect upon your aid and how much you get. So what should people do if they change? Initially they reported to you guys that they were planning on taking 9 credits, and then they said, you know what, actually, I'm going to do 3 credits. What do they do?
Always make certain if any enrollment changes, if you're going up or down in hours, to reach out to your counselor, or you can complete the online adjustment form. We have an adjustment form that's available for students to complete. It has a multitude of different items on there, but you can state that you're going up in hours and how many hours you're going up to. That way we can increase or decrease your aid based off of the result. When you're dropping courses, we will have to adjust the aid, being that the cost of attendance has changed, being that SoPA students are billed per credit hour. This is why the addendum is important on the front end, because we need that per credit hour rate to have your cost of attendance billed. But you want to make certain, for those of you who are dependent on federal aid for keeping you in line for paying your tuition and fees, to be at least part-time. If you drop below part-time hours, you will result in having your aid removed. Federal aid, for the federal direct loan programs, you must be enrolled in at least part-time hours for that to happen. So if you're in 6 hours, if you go down to 3, your aid may be in jeopardy.
All right, that's important. Thank you so much. All right, moving forward. So this is a lot, as was stated earlier by a student, by Mia. How can people keep track of this?
Yes, we have guidance on SAP and everything for SoPA. We actually have a whole tab for SoPA on our website, where you can actually find a checklist for all of the steps that's required and necessary. And it's in the flow of how we would like you all to complete things. So make certain that you follow the checklist, and make certain that if any items are on your to-do list, some items that we didn't cover may, usually for graduate students, this is very rare, but we do have verification that pops up for students. So that might be an additional item you have to put in. That will prevent your aid from actually dispersing and being applied if you do not complete the verification process. So make certain you're always looking at to-do list items and checking for all of those items there.
Thank you. Yeah, with verification, can you kind of clarify what that is real quick before we?
So with verification, it's weird because most of the graduate students I've come across verification with has been for degree completion. Even though you may have had already completed degree completion for your undergraduate degree, sometimes we have to verify it as well. And that's called a V4 verification process. So we have 3 different verification forms that you might have to fall under. It's a standard verification as well, but this process isn't something that is selected by the office. It's selected federally at random by the Department of Education. So it's not something that affects everyone. And like I said, it's generally not one that affects a lot of graduate students. However, in the case where it does come up, make certain you submit all of your verification documents timely. That way we can have your aid award package for you. So watch your to-do list for items that may populate.
Awesome. Yeah, so verification kind of sounds like the federal government's kind of auditing process, like they kind of randomly choose. All right, cool. So thank you so much. I wanted to open it up to some questions. If you have questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. And while people are putting, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask a question, that's totally cool too. But this is not all of the information that you're going to get. Anne's going to email this to you guys if you're interested. And also, if you already have a Tulane email address, you can reach out to your financial aid person. And if you just need to kind of know where to go for financial aid, we also have folks in SoPA that can just connect you to that person if you're just unsure as to where you go as well. If you're still in the admissions process, our executive director of admissions, Sheila Gold, is fantastic. She came to us from the School of Social Work and has a real passion for helping students get into the master's program of their dreams. So please contact her if you have any questions about that. I don't see any new questions coming up. So thank y'all so much for joining us in your lunchtime. I hope you were able to get some clarity about the process, and we hope to see you in class, either virtually or in person very soon. Thank you so much, Miguel. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Vanessa. You all have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.